Well, I wrote it really as a business book, but it's got a lot of personal in it and a lot on relationship. And the business book is how to become successful, how to come back from adversity, how to handle adversity. And I think it's something that really people want to read, as you can see by what you're seeing right now.
Trump, The Art of the Comeback, the final chapter, Ingredients for Success. There is an old saying that if you put a lot into something, chances are you will get a lot out of it. Well, there's nothing fancy or pretty about it. Plain old hard work is, with very few exceptions, a primary ingredient for attaining success or coming back from adversity. I remember watching the great golfer Gary Player being interviewed some years ago, and he made the statement, "It just seems the harder I work, the luckier I get." For some reason, maybe obvious, maybe not, this is very much the truth in my case also. It seems that when I do the best, I am working the hardest. Towards the end of the 1980s and the beginning of the 1990s, I was truly not working at the pace I had worked at before. I wasn't focused. I really thought that life and success just came hand in hand. I thought I was just better than the rest. When I began to relax and take it easier, things began to fall apart. Yes, I know, the economy went south during this period, but I am convinced that if I had maintained the same work ethic I had during the 1970s and most of the 1980s, there would have been no recession for me. Obviously, you've got to be blessed with certain God-given talents or traits, but no matter what you are lucky enough to have, working hard is often the common denominator for success. I know many people who are blessed with unusually great abilities, who consistently lose out and, in fact, get beaten up by people without their talent who just work them to death. Now, if you work hard and also happen to have the ability, there's no stopping you. Many people have the talent, but have never worked hard enough to let it show through. Don't be lazy. Don't lose focus. Just go out and get it done. Another element of success, which I hate to mention here because it truly can't be acquired, is luck. You can be born lucky. Maybe your parents are smart and you inherited great intelligence. Perhaps you're born into wealth and you have access to the best schools and colleges. I think the ultimate gift would be to be born happy. I remember once speaking to a friend who was very successful. He sat down next to me and flew into a rage when I explained my theory of luck. He simply stated, "Donald, there is no such thing as luck. You make your own luck." I was amazed. Here was a guy who was born to a prominent family, a family of some wealth, but great genes. And he got the genes in spades. What you can do, however, is help coax luck into your life by working hard. I have many examples in my own life of being at meetings or places where I did not have to be. Most of these I felt obligated to attend. But it was usually at such a meeting that I would meet somebody who was ultimately able to help me out later or to help me create a success in some form. If I was not at the meeting, I would not have met that person, and that success would most likely not have happened. By being there, even against my own best wishes, I got things accomplished. Once, I was having a problem with a certain politician who was fighting me very hard at a particular development. Somehow, and I still don't know exactly why, a friend of mine called and invited me to a surprise party he was giving for this politician. I was in Florida, and the party was in New York. The last thing I wanted to do was get on a plane and travel for hours in order to go for a party for a man I couldn't stand in the first place. But I felt energetic enough and decided that it would be in my best interest. By the time I arrived, however, it was already very late, and the party was starting to break up. I saw the politician about to leave, but he was really impressed that I would journey from Florida to be with him. He really appreciated it, so we sat down and talked. By the end of the evening, he turned out to be my new best friend, and everything went very smoothly between us from then on. He was actually a very good guy and a positive force, but I would not have known this if I had decided to stay in Florida and watch the sun, the moon, and the stars. I have noticed over the years that those who are guarded out, or put it somewhat more coldly, slightly paranoid, end up being the most successful. How often do you read about heirs of the wealthy who are open and easy prey to the slicklers, sharks, and others who feed on the weak? People who inherit fortunes are very interesting to me. I see it down in Palm Beach all the time, but I respect those who realize their limitations and don't want to take chances. They got lucky. I call them members of the Lucky Sperm Club. They inherited wealth. I've noticed that the lucky ones are usually very cheap. They never pick up the tab, live very frugally, and are seldom the life of the party. They know that if they lose their money, they don't have the ability to make it back. The more unlucky ones are those who inherit wealth and decide that they're going to be the next great success, but they don't have talent. Their money goes fast. It's not a pretty picture. I have seen it often, and seldom is there a sadder scene than a family that starts out with wealth and ends up fighting just to survive. I know one family from Bedford, a wealthy town in Westchester County, New York, that was seemingly blessed with everything. The father was extremely successful on Wall Street, and the kids, outwardly at least, really seemed to have it all. They were handsome and articulate, and you would just never have bet against them. But after the father died, leaving his entire fortune to the children, things started going very wrong. Within 5 years, the business had totally collapsed, and the beautiful Bedford house and New York City apartment were taken back by the banks. The last time I saw one of the sons, the leader of the pack, he was working in a grocery store, barely able to survive. I could see he was a broken man. It was very sad. It's very hard to start at such a high level and go down so low. I don't think that reading The Art of the Comeback would help him very much, because the fall was so severe and his pride has been damaged so badly. Thinking back to the glory days of Bedford, it must be very hard for him. In all fairness, just to get out of bed in the morning and go to work. In order to come back, you need confidence, and his confidence must be totally blown by the fact that he lost so much so fast. It's hard to think of yourself as a winner when you go through a family fortune in a few years and never sample even a morsel of success. But you never know. Maybe he too can come back. Hence, be suspect, be guarded. Let some paranoia reign. You've got to realize that you have got something other people want. Don't let them take it away. Passion is another key ingredient to success, and perhaps even more so to coming back. If you don't have passion about who you are and what you do, what you're trying to be, about where you're going, you might as well just close this book right now and give up. Go get a job and just relax, because you have no chance of making it. Passion is the essence of life, and certainly the essence of success. If you work hard without passion, you're just wasting lots of energy. You really have to want to do something important. Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, the great pastor of the Marble Collegegate Church, and the author of one of the best-selling books of all time, The Power of Positive Thinking, referred to passion as enthusiasm. Peale was an amazing man. I only got to watch him towards the end of his life, but he was truly inspiring. He took a very old and beautiful church on Lower Fifth Avenue and made it into a hotbed of religion. On Sunday mornings, when other churches sat empty, You couldn't even get near Marble College Gate. When Dr. Peel was preaching, the church had 2 sessions. We sat throngs of people. It wasn't enough. They had to open up offices and rooms all over the church and wire them up with closed-circuit television sets. Dr. Peel commanded the pulpit like no one else. He was perhaps the greatest speaker I have ever watched. The enthusiasm and passion he had for his work was totally infectious. You would leave his church and say, "Gee whiz, it's too bad that it's over. I would love to hear some more." When Dr. Peel wrote The Power of Positive Thinking, he meant just that. Think positively. But what he was also saying was that this is not a false way of thinking. Thinking positively has got to be a natural thing. You don't just say to yourself, "I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it." You never let the negative thoughts even enter your mind. It is imperative that you do something you really love. Vince Lombardi, the great football coach, was famous for saying, "You've got to love it." He believed you would not be a winner on the football field if you didn't love tackling or hitting really hard. The same thing is true in life and business. You've got to tackle and hit real hard. I know many people who have the ability, but they are just doing things they don't want to be doing. Their enthusiasm runs low, and they don't work as hard as they should. It's because, as Lombardi always said, they don't love it. I think of a man I know whose life has never gotten going. He grew up rich and very spoiled, and never really had any real incentive to accomplish much. One day recently, I received a phone call from him because I am building 2 great golf courses in Westchester County, and he wanted to give me a reference on a contractor who had just done a great job for him. He had been a member of a country club, also in Westchester, for many years, and now they were redoing the greens and much of the landscaping, and he was heading the committee that was responsible for this project. I was surprised at how enthusiastic he sounded about this endeavor. He told me how he would arrive at 6 or 7 o'clock almost every morning to inspect the work. Nothing could be done without his approval. Every blade of grass had to be perfect. What was interesting to me, however, was the confidence and enthusiasm that this gentleman expressed. I had known him for a long time, and I had never heard it before. When I asked him about the rest of his life, he virtually didn't want to waste the time to tell me about it. He kept steering the conversation back to the golf course and how much fun he was having. After listening to him for 10 minutes, I said that he should go back into that business. He almost didn't know what I meant, but I was very insistent. "Look," I told him, "you've never really been very successful, and yet you're a smart guy. You never liked what you did. And that was obvious to me and everyone around you. This is the first time I've ever had a conversation with you where you are upbeat, enthusiastic, and smart as hell on the topic. Get out of what you're doing and go into golf course design and construction. Even if you don't make as much money, you'll enjoy your life, and I predict you'll be really successful at it. Don't even think about it for a minute." He didn't take my advice. I saw him recently, and he had faded back into his former somber mood. I asked him how things were going, and he said, in a barely audible voice, "Okay." I asked him how he did with the golf course, and he explained that the project was finished about a year ago, and there was nothing left for him to do. It had come out beautifully, and now a new committee had taken over. Basically, he didn't have the courage to make the move, even though it would have been the best for him. I'm still working on him, and I'll probably succeed. And when I am successful, he will be successful. The courage to make a switch, even if it seems like a ridiculous one, is also an ingredient for success. There are times when a change in life's course does seem strange, but it may well be necessary in order to create success. And success can't be measured in just dollars and cents. It has to be measured in happiness too. I know many rich people who are extremely unhappy and really should be doing something else. Going against the tide is often a very clever thing to do. While it can involve unbelievable risks, and while I cannot say that it's a primary factor for success, often going in the opposite direction can lead to the highest level of achievement. When I decided to keep 40 Wall Street as an office building, I was very much going against the tide. Everyone in Lower Manhattan was converting their buildings to apartments, and with good reason. The apartment market is as hot as a pistol, and Lower Manhattan is fast becoming a fantastic residential community. But I had a building that was well known for business and much less costly to convert into offices rather than apartments. It was also a spectacular structure. I decided that rather going to the safe route, the route that everyone else was doing and taking, I would head in the exact opposite direction. It turns out that many buildings are under construction now as apartments, and they will all do fine. But I have the only major office building in downtown Manhattan that is in peak condition and a prime location. I am signing up tenants as fast as the leases can be drawn and at rents that are far higher than anything I ever expected. Good management is a key to success and will always be. The ability to manage is a unique trait, but often good managers by themselves do not have the many other ingredients needed to truly succeed. One who does is a man named Pat Foley. During the early 80s, Pat was the president of the Hyatt Hotel Corporation and took Hyatt to a position of prominence in the hotel industry. Under his leadership, it was a dynamic company, well managed at every level, and a company with a great promotional and architectural sense. Pat really helped put Hyatt on the map. I'll never forget my first major experience with Pat. I had just finished construction of the Grand Hyatt Hotel on 42nd Street and Park Avenue, and the hotel was getting ready to open. I was very proud of my achievement because at a very young age, I had bought the hotel significantly ahead of schedule and under budget. It was now Hyatt's turn to show its stuff and manage this beautiful project I had created. During the late 70s and early 80s, I was extremely busy on many fronts, building the foundations of what was to become the Trump Organization. I really didn't have the time or patience to attend management meetings at the Hyatt Hotel. As important as those meetings were, instead, I asked Ivana to attend. The problem was that the general manager of the hotel, a fantastic guy in all other respects, had a hard time taking orders from women. When Ivana would say something, he just wouldn't listen. When Ivana would ask questions, he would barely even answer them. He had absolutely no respect for Ivana, and it wasn't Ivana's fault. He was a strong guy and a good manager, but when it came to women, he wasn't open to their ideas. Perhaps he was the one who thought, incorrectly, that a woman's place is in the kitchen. In any event, a problem was arising, and arising fast. Ivana would come home and cry that they weren't giving her the respect she deserved at the Grand Hyatt. I called the manager, and while he was very nice, he really wasn't open to letting her get involved. Then I called Pat Foley, the manager's boss, and explained my problem. He said to me, "Look, Donald, I disagree with you, but if you want Ivana involved, then I'm going to get her involved." He called a meeting of the manager, Ivana, me, and himself. We sat around a table having breakfast at the hotel's Crystal Fountain restaurant. He told his manager in the strongest of tones that he wanted Ivana's total involvement. He wanted her every word to be appreciated. Whenever anything was bought, sold, moved, or changed, he wanted the manager to call her and get her permission. he made Ivana feel truly important and good about herself. Over the next couple of months, Ivana was called incessantly by the manager and everybody else in the Hyatt about everything, from buying a sheet or how to clean the pots and pans to the cost of detergent. Ivana got so bored and tired, she didn't want to hear it anymore, but she was happy that she was being treated with respect. What Pat Foley did was keep his partner, me, happy. Rather than saying no to her involvement, he said, "What the hell? She's going to get tired of it soon anyway, and we'll never hear from her again." Pat left Hyatt, a very strong and dynamic company, and went to DHL, where he did the same thing. He built it into a dynamic force, and it is now, starting from a small base, one of the most respected companies in its field. Pat is one of the people you read about who truly manages through personality. When he was running the Hyatt hotel chain, he would walk into the kitchens, grab chefs who he had never even seen before, give them huge hugs, and tell them what a great job they were doing. When he left, the entire kitchen was upbeat, and in a time when chefs were almost impossible to get, there was no way they were going to be leaving the Hyatt. It is very important to be respected if you are going to be successful, especially in your own mind. People who have respect for you, for who you are and what you've done, the only way they're going to do it, the only way they're going to do so is if you earn their respect. Despite that, people will often want to take advantage of you in any way they can. You've got to let them know who's the boss, and you can't take any of their fucking crap. People rule in many ways, but whether through fear or respect, your opponents and even your friends must know that they can't push you around. If they can, you're not the boss. They are. They also have to know that if they try to take advantage of you, there is a price for them to pay. Be firm, be strong, and be fair. But if somebody tries to screw you, screw them back harder than they ever got screwed before. Above all, keep your eye on the shop. I said it before, and I'll say it again. If I'd kept my eye on the ball, I might have been able to anticipate the systematic economic problems in the early 90s, but I didn't. I left the day-to-day business up to others. Apparently my friend, Michelin Riculus, did the same. Riculus is a hardened deal-maker, who unfortunately for him is perhaps more famous for having been married to Pia Zadara than for having made $1 billion 2 or 3 times. He came into my office at one point and told me how he had made a great deal of money, then gone out, hired executives to run his company, found a new and beautiful wife, and relaxed. He then related how much of that fortune was lost by the executives while we sat back and enjoyed the good life. "I had to immediately go back to work again, Donald," he said, and rebuilt his fortune. This happened a second time to Rick, and frankly, it looks to me like it's happening a third. As he left the office, he told me, "You know, Donald, I've gone through this twice before, but now that I'm 75, it's different." Pia, who also worked so hard to make it, into a star despite her obvious shortcomings, had left him and later married a much younger man. I couldn't help feeling a little bit sorry for him. In order to truly be successful, you need a great deal of drive and stamina. Seldom can success be achieved without an almost complete and universal focus on what it is you're trying to accomplish. Sure, on occasion, someone might have an idea so brilliant that others are able to take it and make a lot of money for that someone. That is, if he is able to protect himself legally in the first place. Just as you can't be successful without focus, you cannot do anything if you are unable to deal with stress. One thing I know for sure, when the going gets tough, don't reach for a drink. I've seen alcohol ruin the lives of chief executives. I've seen it destroy marriages and rip apart families. I've seen it kill. My older brother, Fred Jr., who I love dearly, died of alcoholism. When I open the newspaper and read of the assault on the tobacco companies, I often ask myself why alcohol companies aren't under a similar attack. Far more people have been killed by alcoholism and its related problems than have ever been killed by cigarettes. Let's wake up, lawyers. In concluding a list of important points for success and for a comeback, the one I am most proud of to have learned is to never take success for granted. I would have never had my glitch in the early 1990s had I realized this at the time. Success is not easy. It is hard won, with many elements going into it. I realize that now. Don't take success for granted, and you'll never have to worry about it again. As I close this book, I'm going into perhaps the most exciting part of my life. I am starting 610 Park Avenue at 65th Street and Park with Colony Capital and its head, Tom Barrick, one of the smartest people in business. 610 Park will be a super luxury apartment development in perhaps the best location in New York City. It will use the skeleton and exterior walls of the Mayfair Regent Hotel. When completed, it will be one of the most luxurious and beautiful buildings in New York. In a similar vein, I am also converting 100 Central Park South, an 83-unit apartment house that faces the park. I am also working with the great Korean company Daewoo on a super luxury high-rise tower directly across from the UN on United Nations Plaza. When complete, this tower, to be called the Trump World Tower, will be 80 stories tall and have views of the United Nations and beyond unsurpassed anywhere in the city. It will also have a hotel section and a restaurant, much like Trump International Hotel and Tower at 1 Central Park West. Trump United Nations will be the tallest residential building in the country. By the time this book is complete, the West Side Railroad yards will be in full bloom. 2 major towers are already started, and an additional 2 or 3 will begin shortly. As stated before, this is the largest development project ever approved by the New York City Planning Commission, and it will be built, depending on the market, over a period of 7 to 10 years. The end result will be 5,700 units of housing, overlooking the Hudson River, behind Lincoln Center, stretching from 59th Street to 52nd. This will truly be a great city within the greatest city of them all, New York. Mar-a-Lago has become such a great success as a club that I've embarked on a number of other club projects that are very exciting. I'm building the Trump National Golf Club in Bryan Cliff Manor, a wonderful community in Westchester County. When completed, about a year from now, this club will be one of the best in New York. I am in the middle of zoning Seven Springs Development in Bedford, New York's wealthiest community. A 214-acre parcel of land surrounded by hundreds of acres of National Wildlife Preserve, only a short distance outside the city. This is probably the best land I've ever seen for such a high-end golf course. When completed, the Trump Mansion at Seven Springs will be one of the greatest golf courses anywhere in the world. The third course I am building has already been started, directly opposite the main entrance to the private jet port at the Palm Beach International Airport. This will be called Trump International Golf Club, and I hope to make it the finest in Florida. Many people have already joined, and the club hasn't even opened. at Trump International, we'll be moving close to 3 million yards of earth, almost a record for a golf course. The end result will be breathtaking. With FAI Insurance, I will be revisiting the St. Moritz Hotel. When I sold the St. Moritz to Alan Bond in the late 80s for $180 million, he had to borrow the money from the Australian insurance company. In the end, FAI foreclosed on Alan and took over the property. I am now in a joint venture with FAI, which is headed by Rodney Adler, a brilliant young entrepreneur from Australia who took over the company after his father's death. Most institutional people would have sold the St. Moritz in a terrible down market of the early 90s, and they would have lost a fortune. Because he did not let this happen, because he had the courage to hold on and weather the bad storm, Rodney, in my opinion, is going to make a great deal of money for his shareholders. We are converting the St. Moritz into a super luxury condominium tower that will be among the most beautiful anywhere in the world. I am very proud of this project. I was very lucky with it the first time, and that I made a great deal of money in so little time. It is always nice to revisit early successes. My casino company continues to thrive, but the public marketplace has not embraced it the way I feel it should. In the end, I believe my stockholders will be very happy with what we are doing, just like Trump bondholders before them, who had a difficult spell during the early 90s and are now extremely happy they held. I believe that the Trump Hotels and Casino Resort stock will be one of the really good ones over the next couple of years. I'll be working with my partners from CDL, headed by Kwek Lang Bend, the brilliant Singaporean who this year received an award as the most outstanding businessman in Asia, and Prince Al-Lead, who has already become a legendary businessman for some of the great deals he has made over the last 7 years, including Citibank and Euro Disney. We will be converting a number of underutilized floors at the Plaza Hotel into super luxury condominiums. This will most likely be the last book I write. To do it right takes a lot of time and patience. More important, the things I am stressing, whether they be for success or coming back, really are not going to change. Working hard and working smart, whether in the 1980s, 1990s, or in the year 2000, will always be the ticket. I have really enjoyed writing this book, even more than the other two. I am very happy at this time in my life, and I've seen my company through a storm of great propositions, a storm of great proportions that has devastated many companies and people, and I am now bigger and stronger than ever before. I have learned a lot, and I have spelled much of it out in the pages of this book. I just hope that people are able to take some of my words and apply them to their own lives, especially if they are troubled, looking for success, or, very simply, to get back what they once had and more. There could be no greater joy for me than to hear from people that this book made a big difference in their lives. If you want to tell me about your comeback, send me a letter. You know the address. Meanwhile, work hard and don't allow yourself to understand the meaning of the word defeat. Above all, enjoy what you're doing, and the only thing you'll have is victory, victory, victory. Trump, The Art of the Comeback. Acknowledgements. I could not have done what I did to come back without certain people who stuck by me every step of the way. Nick Rebus, my trusted Chief Executive Officer, is a good friend and a truly outstanding businessman who has completely helped me to turn around my casino interests in Atlantic City and more. My executive assistant, Norma Fradier, is someone I will never be able to thank enough. The title executive assistant does not even begin to describe what she does for me and the Trump organization. I would also like to take the opportunity to thank my former chief financial officer, Stephen Ballenbach. Steve was a tremendous help to me. He's smart, efficient, and not afraid to speak his mind. Steve is now working with Barron Hilton, the brilliant and far-sighted chairman of Hilton Hotels, and I have no doubt that he will do an outstanding job, as he has already done. There are many others who have stood by me and helped me along the way, including Abe Wallach, my head of real estate, Bernie Diamond, my chief counsel, Dino Bradley, Alan Weaselberg, David Maskey, Andy Weiss, Charlie Rice. I would also like to thank my 3 loyal secretaries, Ronna Graff, Anita Sharp, and Rachel Ryan, for putting up with the madness. You've been great. At Random House and Times Books, I am particularly grateful to Harold Evans, Times Books publisher, Peter Bernstein, and associate publisher, Carrie Freemouth, publicity director, Mary Beth Rock, and my editor, Jonathan Karp. Another crucial participant in my comeback is Big Matt Calamari, my chief of security. Matt does everything and anything necessary to make my life safe and as easy as possible, and he does it with iron style. Matt always tells me that if he was not 6 feet, 4 inches, and 265 pounds of pure muscle, people would think he's smart. Kind of like the dumb blonde stereotype. I couldn't have done my comeback without him, because if he wasn't around, I might not have been here to come back at all. I would also like to thank my unwavering and loyal assistant, Heather Parks. We shared quite a few Blearly all-nighters. I also wish to thank Dino Bradley, Candace Bushnell, Josh Levine, Alan Marcus, and Fidel Marquez for their star wall support and unflagging good looks. Of course, Binky Urban, whose indispensable guidance sustained me, and Jonathan Karp, my editor, who was just a love. Most of all, the Donald. He believed when others didn't, and never stopped believing. Kate Bonner. And that concludes the book, Trump, The Art of the Comeback. I hope you enjoy listening, and I'm thinking of doing my next reading on Trump, Think Like a Billionaire, which I actually acquired a signed copy of last week. So stay tuned for that.